I used to believe that love was something you fought for. That if you just gave enough, if you just tried hard enough, you could fix anything. I built my entire marriage on that belief. I spent years being the man who always showed up, always gave more than he took, always put her first. And then one day, she told me she wasn't happy. It wasn't a dramatic conversation. No yelling, no accusations, just a quiet confession over dinner. She pushed her food around her plate, never quite meeting my eyes, and said, "I don't know, Alton. Something's missing." I felt like I had been punched in the chest. What do you say to that? How do you respond when the person you've built a life with admits, without anger or malice, that they just don't feel the same anymore? I asked the questions that any husband would. Was there something I had done, something I hadn't done? Could we fix it? Could we try harder? She sighed. "I don't know." Those words haunted me. I don't know. So I did what I had always done. I tried harder. I booked weekend trips, planned date nights, left little notes in her purse like I used to when we were younger. I told myself that love wasn't a feeling, it was a choice, and if she had chosen me once, she could choose me again. But the harder I tried, the further she drifted. First, she would smile and say thank you. Then the smiles faded. She started making excuses, coming home late from work, spending more time out with friends. She was slipping away, and no matter how much I reached for her, I couldn't hold on. Then came the night I finally understood. She was in the shower, and I was in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering what else I could do. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced at it without thinking, expecting some generic notification, but then I saw the name. It wasn't one I recognized. And then the preview message flashed across the screen. "I can't wait to see you again." I stared at those words for what felt like an eternity, the final nail in the coffin of everything I had been trying to save. I heard the water stop, the sound of the shower door opening, and then her voice, light and unconcerned. "Alton, can you grab me a towel?" I stood up. I grabbed a towel. I walked to the bathroom door, and then, for the first time in my life, I felt it. Absolute stillness. I wasn't angry. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't desperate to fix things. I was just done. And that was the moment everything changed. I stood there for a long time, towel in hand, staring at the closed bathroom door. Steam curled out from the small crack beneath it, the scent of her lavender body wash filling the air. A scent I used to love, a scent that once meant comfort and familiarity. But now it felt foreign, like it belonged to someone I no longer knew. Her voice came again, light-hearted as if nothing was wrong. "Alton, the towel?" I stepped forward, placed it on the counter without saying a word, and walked away. I didn't wait for a thank you. I didn't even look at her. And maybe that was the first real shift, because for the first time in years, I didn't feel like chasing her. I climbed into bed, pulled the covers over myself, and turned my back to the bathroom door. A minute later, I felt the mattress dip as she slid in beside me. Her presence was familiar, but suddenly it felt suffocating, like an intruder in my own home. I thought about the text, about the way she had been acting for months, about the way I had been fooling myself into thinking I could fix what was already broken. And yet I said nothing. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. I wanted to turn over, to confront her, to demand an explanation. But what would be the point? She had already made her choice. The only thing left was for me to make mine. The next morning, I woke up before her. The sun had barely begun creeping through the blinds, casting long streaks of light across our bedroom. I lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling, listening to her even breathing beside me. And then, without fully thinking it through, I got up, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door. I had no destination in mind. I just drove. I drove in silence. The only sound the low hum of the engine and the occasional blinker as I aimlessly turned down unfamiliar streets. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to go home. I just wanted to be somewhere, anywhere, other than in that house with her. Eventually, I ended up at a diner, one of those old, forgotten places with cracked leather booths and a waitress who looked like she had been working there since the place opened. I slid into a booth by the window and ordered black coffee. I didn't touch it. Instead, I sat there, staring out at the parking lot, wondering when exactly I had lost myself. Because that was the real problem, wasn't it? I had spent so much time trying to make her happy, so much time fighting to keep our marriage together, that I hadn't even realized how much of myself I had sacrificed in the process. I had been so busy trying to be the man she needed that I had forgotten to be the man I wanted to be. And maybe that was why she had pulled away. I didn't want to think about that. I didn't want to play the what-if game, to dissect every moment, every conversation, every decision I had made. It was exhausting. I was exhausted. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. Miriam. For a brief moment, I considered ignoring it, letting her wonder where I was for once. But old habits die hard. So I sighed and answered. "Where are you?" she asked immediately, her voice a mix of confusion and irritation. "Out." "Out where?" "Just out." There was a long pause, then a sigh. "Look, I know things have been weird between us lately. I think we should talk." Talk? Now she wanted to talk? After months of pushing me away? After that text message? I almost laughed. But instead, I just exhaled slowly and said, "Maybe later." And then, for the first time in our entire marriage, I hung up on her. I stared at my phone for a long moment, half expecting it to ring again. But it didn't, and that silence spoke volumes. She had always known I would chase her. No matter how distant she became, no matter how much she pulled away, she knew I would always be right there, reaching for her, trying to fix whatever was broken. But this time I wasn't going to, and I think deep down she knew that too. I sat in that diner long after the call ended, watching the coffee in my cup grow cold. Something had shifted inside me. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even sadness. It was relief, a strange, unexpected lightness, like I had finally put down a weight I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying for years. I had spent so much time trying to hold on to something that wasn't there anymore. I had bent over backward to keep our marriage together, convinced that if I just tried a little harder, gave a little more, I could fix whatever had gone wrong. But that was the lie I had been telling myself. The truth was, she had let go a long time ago. I had just been too blind to see it. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, came by to refill my coffee. She gave me a once-over, like she had seen men like me before, sitting in her booth at odd hours, staring at nothing. "You look like a man who's got too much on his mind," she said, her voice low and knowing. I let out a breathless chuckle. "Something like that." She hesitated for a moment, then slid a slice of pie onto the table next to my coffee. "On the house," she said. "Sometimes you just need a little something sweet to remind you life ain't all bad." I didn't have the heart to tell her I wasn't hungry, so I just nodded my thanks. She patted my shoulder and walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I didn't want to go home, not yet, because home wasn't home anymore. It was a place filled with silence, with tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. A place where my wife looked at me like I was an obligation rather than a choice. I wasn't ready to step back into that. So, I sat there, staring at my phone, wondering if she would call again. But she didn't. She always expected me to be the one to fix things, to apologize even when I hadn't done anything wrong, to chase after her whenever she pulled away. But for the first time, I didn't want to chase. I wanted to see what happened if I just stopped. Eventually, the weight of exhaustion settled over me, and I knew I couldn't sit in that diner forever. I paid my bill, left a generous tip for the waitress, and drove home, bracing myself for whatever conversation was waiting for me. When I walked through the front door, Miriam was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, looking as if nothing had changed, as if she hadn't noticed I was gone for hours. She glanced up at me, then back at her screen. "You didn't say where you were going." "I didn't think I needed to," I said simply. She frowned slightly, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. This was new for her. Me not giving an explanation, me not rushing to reassure her, me not begging her to tell me what was wrong. "I was just surprised," she said after a moment. "You're usually not gone that long without telling me." Usually. That word lingered between us, heavy with meaning. I didn't respond. I just walked past her, heading upstairs to our bedroom. I heard her let out a small breath behind me, like she was waiting for me to say more, like she wanted me to ask her what was wrong. But I didn't. For the first time, I let her sit with the silence. And I could feel it. It unsettled her. That night, I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her shifting beside me. She wasn't sleeping. Neither was I. The space between us felt wider than ever, and for the first time I wondered if that was a good thing. The air between us had changed, and I could feel it. That night, as I lay there staring at the ceiling, the weight of my wife's presence beside me felt different. It wasn't comforting. It wasn't familiar. It was like we were two strangers lying in the same bed, pretending that the distance between us wasn't growing wider by the second. She shifted under the covers, and for a brief moment, I thought she was about to say something. I waited. The words never came, and for the first time I didn't feel the urge to fill the silence. I turned onto my side, facing away from her, and closed my eyes. It was a small thing, but I knew she noticed. The next morning, I woke up before her again. The habit had started years ago. Making coffee before she got up, reading the news, enjoying the quiet of the early morning before the world fully woke up. But today, as I stood in the kitchen watching the coffee drip into the pot, it felt different. I wasn't waiting for her to come down the stairs. I wasn't expecting her to kiss me on the cheek like she used to, or wrap her arms around me from behind. Those days were long gone. She finally came downstairs, hair slightly messy, her oversized sweater hanging loosely off her shoulder. She looked at me for a moment, as if she was trying to gauge something. I didn't give her anything to read. "You left early yesterday," she said, opening the fridge and grabbing a bottle of water. I took a sip of coffee. "Yeah." A beat of silence. "Where'd you go?" I shrugged. "Just out." That answer wasn't good enough for her. It never had been. She hated when I wasn't specific, when she couldn't neatly place my actions into a box she could understand. "So you just left?" I nodded. She set the bottle down on the counter, crossing her arms. "Alton, what's going on?" I turned to look at her, really look at her, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't searching for the woman I had fallen in love with. I wasn't looking for some sign that she still cared. Instead, I was realizing something far more painful. I didn't care that she was unhappy anymore. I had spent months, maybe even years, bending over backward trying to figure out what was wrong, what had changed, what I had done to make her drift away. I had spent so much time chasing after something that no longer existed, hoping that if I just held on a little tighter, she would stop slipping through my fingers. But now I felt nothing, and that scared me more than anything. She shifted on her feet, waiting for me to say something, to reassure her, to tell her everything was fine. Instead, I just said, "I think I need some space." Her face twitched, but she covered it quickly. "What do you mean?" I set my coffee down, exhaling slowly. "I mean, I've spent so much time trying to figure out how to make you happy that I never stopped to ask if I was happy." Her lips parted slightly, like she was about to say something, but she hesitated. For once, she was the one searching for words. I had always been predictable, reliable, always the first to apologize, always the first to patch things up, always the first to chase after her when she pulled away. But now I was standing still, and she didn't know what to do with that. You're not happy?" she asked, her voice softer than before. I let the question sit in the air for a moment. Then I shook my head. "No, not like this." The silence between us stretched. She swallowed hard, shifting her weight, suddenly uncomfortable in a way I had never seen before. "I didn't know you felt that way," she admitted. I almost laughed. Of course she didn't, because I had never let myself admit it either. But now I was done pretending. She just stood there, staring at me, processing what I had said like it was the first time she'd ever considered the possibility. The idea that I might not be happy had never crossed her mind. That was what struck me the hardest. I had spent so long chasing after her, trying to make things work, that she had never once thought to ask if I was okay with the way things were. She swallowed hard, gripping the countertop behind her. "Alton, I didn't know you felt that way." I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. That's the problem, Miriam. You never asked. Her lips parted slightly, but nothing came out. She was struggling to find something to say, something that would justify the distance between us. I could see the gears turning in her head, searching for an explanation that would put her back in control of the conversation. But there wasn't one. Finally, she sighed and rubbed her temples. I guess I just assumed you were fine. That sentence landed heavier than she probably intended. I just assumed you were fine. For years, I had put everything into this marriage. I had shown up even when she didn't. I had fought for her even when she gave up. I had swallowed my pride, ignored the warning signs, and convinced myself that if I just tried harder, she'd come back to me. But the truth was, she had stopped seeing me as a person a long time ago. I was just there, a constant, someone she didn't have to think about. That realization hit me like a freight train. She had checked out of this marriage long before she ever said she wasn't happy. And the worst part? I had let her. I pushed my chair back, standing up slowly. I need to get out of here for a bit. Her brows furrowed, panic flickering across her face for the first time. What do you mean? I grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair, exhaling as I ran a hand through my hair. I mean, I need space. I need to think. And maybe we should talk first? I held up a hand, cutting her off. No, you don't get to do that, Miriam. You don't get to ignore me for months, brush me aside like I don't matter, and then suddenly decide you want to talk the second I pull away. She blinked, stunned. I had never spoken to her like that before. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I wasn't trying to hurt her. But for the first time, I wasn't filtering my words to protect her feelings. She opened her mouth to respond, but I didn't wait. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I needed to breathe. I got in my car and drove aimlessly, my grip on the steering wheel tight. My mind was racing, replaying the last few months, the last few years, trying to pinpoint the exact moment everything had started falling apart. But the truth was, there wasn't one moment. It had been happening for a long time. I had just refused to see it. I pulled into an empty parking lot near a small park, letting my head fall back against the seat. The radio was playing something soft in the background, but I barely registered it. For the first time in a long time, I asked myself a question I had been too afraid to face. What if I stopped trying? What if I stopped chasing after someone who clearly didn't want to be caught? What if I let her go, let whatever we had left dissolve into the silence that had already taken over our marriage? Would she even care? Would she even fight for me the way I had fought for her? I sat there for hours, just thinking. And when I finally pulled my phone from my pocket, I wasn't surprised to see missed calls from her, messages. But for once, I didn't feel the need to respond. For once, I let her wait. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The missed calls from Miriam stared back at me from my phone screen, but I didn't move to answer. For the first time in our entire marriage, I was the one ignoring her. And I could already tell she didn't know how to handle it. A cold breeze seeped through the cracked window, but I barely noticed. My mind was spinning in too many directions. How had I let it get to this point? How had I spent years chasing after someone who never even turned around to see if I was still behind her? I had been running in circles, trying to prove my worth to a woman who had never questioned whether she wanted to keep me. But now I was the one questioning if she was worth holding on to. I looked down at my phone again. Another missed call. This time, a message followed. Miriam, Alton, please come home. We need to talk. For months, I had begged for conversations that never happened. Now she wanted to talk the second I stopped begging. I let out a slow breath and turned my phone face down. Not yet. I needed more time. I leaned back in the seat, letting my mind wander to the last time I had truly felt happy in my marriage. It was hard to pinpoint an exact moment. Had it been years ago when we still laughed at each other's stupid jokes? Or had it been even longer, back when she looked at me like I was enough? At some point, I had stopped being Alton and had just become a fixture in her life. Someone she expected to always be there, always available, always willing to wait in the background while she figured out what she wanted. Maybe that was my biggest mistake. I had let her believe that I would always be there. But now I wasn't so sure. I eventually started the car again, but instead of heading home, I found myself driving somewhere else. An old bar on the edge of town, the kind of place that smelled like stale beer and sawdust, the kind of place where no one asked you what was wrong because they all had their own problems. I stepped inside, nodding at the bartender as I slid onto a stool. He barely acknowledged me, wiping down the counter before sliding a menu my way. I wasn't here for food. I wasn't even here for a drink. I was here because I couldn't go home. Not yet. I needed to be somewhere that wasn't filled with her presence. Her scent, her ghost haunting every room. I ordered a whiskey, though I barely touched it. Instead, I found myself staring at the glass, watching the way the amber liquid caught the dim light. I had been so used to being reactive in my marriage, fixing things, smoothing things over, making up for her distance, that I had never stopped to ask what I actually wanted. Did I even want to fix things anymore? Or was I just scared of what would happen if I stopped trying? I was halfway through my drink when I felt my phone buzz again. This time, I sighed and glanced at the screen. But it wasn't Miriam. It was an old friend, Jules. "Hey man, you doing okay? Heard you've been off the grid today." Jules, one of the few people who had seen me at my worst and stuck around anyway. We hadn't talked much lately, mostly because I had been too busy focusing on fixing a marriage that was already cracked beyond repair. I hesitated for a second before replying. "Me, I don't know. I think I just realized something today." "Jules?" "Yeah, me. I think I've been fighting for something that doesn't exist anymore." There was a long pause before his response came through. "Jules, maybe it's time to stop fighting then." I stared at the words for a long time, my fingers hovering over the screen. Maybe it was. But what would happen when I finally stopped? Would she chase me the way I had chased her? Or had she already decided that I wasn't worth the effort? Either way, I was done running after someone who had already walked away. And if she wanted me this time, she would have to be the one to prove it. I sat in that bar for over an hour, nursing the same drink, staring at my reflection in the half-empty glass. Felt strange. Not the whiskey, not the dim light of the place, but the realization that I was no longer in a hurry to go home. Home used to mean safety. It used to mean warmth, comfort, love. Now it was just walls, just furniture, a place where I existed, not where I lived. I didn't want to exist anymore. I wanted to live. Another message from Jules came through. "You want to crash at my place tonight?" I stared at the screen, considering it. The old me, the one who had spent the past few years bending over backward to hold my marriage together, would have refused, would have told myself that no matter how bad things were, home was where I belonged. But now I wasn't sure that was true anymore. I typed out a quick reply. "Me, not yet. I need to face this first." And I did, because something told me that if I walked away now, Miriam would never feel what I had felt. She would never know what it was like to stay up at night wondering if she had lost something irreplaceable. She would never experience the anxiety of waiting for a response, for a call, for any sign that things weren't slipping through her fingers. And for the first time in years, I wanted her to feel that fear. I paid for my drink, left the bar, and drove home, my fingers tapping against the steering wheel. I wasn't angry. I wasn't planning on some big confrontation. I had no rehearsed speech in my head. I just wanted to see her reaction. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark except for the faint glow of a lamp in the living room. I could see her silhouette through the window. She was sitting on the couch, her phone in her hand, her knee bouncing slightly. She was waiting for me. I stepped inside, and the moment the door shut behind me, her head snapped up. "Where have you been?" Her voice wasn't sharp. It wasn't accusing. It was something else, something I had never heard from her before, worry. I tossed my keys onto the table, shrugging off my jacket. "Out." She set her phone down, standing slowly. "Alton, I've been calling you. I was worried." I raised an eyebrow. "Worried?" Her lips pressed together, her arms crossing over her chest. "Yeah, you've never done that before." "Done what?" "Just left without telling me where you were going, without answering my calls." I exhaled through my nose, shaking my head. "Funny. isn't it? You spend months ignoring someone, pushing them away, making them feel invisible, and then suddenly, the moment they pull away, it's a problem. She flinched, like I had struck her. That's not fair. I let out a breathless laugh. Isn't it? Silence. Heavy, suffocating. She shifted on her feet, tucking her hair behind her ear, something she did when she was nervous. Can we just talk? I studied her, searching for something in her expression. She wasn't angry. She wasn't defensive. She was unsettled. For the first time, the ground beneath her wasn't steady. She was afraid. Afraid that I had finally realized I didn't need her. Afraid that I wasn't going to chase her anymore. I nodded slowly. All right, let's talk. I walked past her, sinking onto the couch, watching as she hesitated before sitting beside me. She clasped her hands together, staring at them for a long moment before finally speaking. I know I've been distant, she admitted quietly. That was an understatement. And I know I've hurt you. I stayed silent. She took a deep breath. I got caught up in my own head, in my own problems, and I didn't realize how much I was pushing you away. Until now. I tilted my head slightly. And now that I've stopped chasing you, that's when you realize it? She swallowed. Yeah, that's what I thought. I don't want to lose you, Alton. Her voice was softer now, almost hesitant. She shook her head. I need to figure things out. But I don't want to do that without you. For months, years, I would have killed to hear those words. But now I wasn't sure if they were enough. Because for the first time, I wasn't afraid of losing her. I was afraid of losing myself again. And I didn't know if I was willing to let that happen. I sat there watching her, waiting for some kind of revelation to hit me, for some grand moment where my heart would pull me back toward her, where all the love we once had would come rushing back. That was how it was supposed to go, right? The movies always made it seem like love was something you could fix with a deep conversation, with the right words, with enough effort. But I didn't feel it. I felt tired. Miriam sat beside me, her hands gripping each other like she was holding on to the only thing keeping her steady. Her eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen in a long time. Fear. Not fear of me, not fear of confrontation, but fear of the unknown. Fear of what would happen if I walked away. For the first time, she was experiencing what I had lived with for months. The quiet uncertainty, the waiting, the creeping realization that the person you once relied on might not be there anymore. And I had to wonder, was this how she had wanted me to feel? Because if it was, then she was finally getting a taste of her own medicine. I let out a breath, leaning forward with my elbows on my knees. What exactly are you asking me for, Miriam? She looked down at her hands, her voice barely above a whisper. A chance to fix this. I stared at her, trying to figure out if she even believed her own words. She had spent so long keeping me at arm's length, treating me like an afterthought, assuming I would always be there no matter how far she pushed me away. And now, when she realized that might not be true anymore, suddenly she wanted to fix things. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something inside me had already let go. I don't think I can do this anymore, I finally said, my voice quiet but firm. Her head snapped up, her lips parting slightly. What? I turned toward her, forcing myself to look her in the eyes. I spent so much time trying to make you happy, trying to hold on to something that you'd already let go of, and you never once fought for me. I swallowed hard. I can't be the only one trying anymore. She shook her head quickly, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away. No, Alton. I was just lost. I was confused. I didn't realize what I was doing to you. I gave her a sad smile. And that's the problem. She blinked rapidly, as if she could stop what was happening just by refusing to accept it. Please, we can fix this. We just need more time. I sighed, standing up. I think we've already had enough time, Miriam. She stared up at me, her expression frozen between denial and heartbreak. So that's it? You're just done. I hesitated for a moment, letting the weight of her words settle between us. Then I nodded. Yeah, I said softly. I think I am. For the first time, I wasn't the one chasing her. For the first time, she was the one watching me walk away, and she didn't know how to stop me. I turned and headed upstairs, grabbing a bag and packing the essentials. Not because I had some grand plan, not because I knew exactly what I was going to do next, but because I needed space. I needed clarity. I needed to know who I was without constantly trying to be the man she expected me to be. I heard her crying downstairs, muffled and shaky, but I didn't stop. She had made her choices, and now I was making mine. As I stepped out into the cool night air, I took a deep breath, feeling something I hadn't in a long, long time. Freedom. I wasn't afraid anymore, and for the first time in years I was finally moving forward without her.